Welcome, Oscar.
Oscar, alcoholic. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Glad you're here, especially the newcomers. I hope what you find here is the same thing I found here, and that's hope. If you're on your cell phone, please put it away. It's distracting me, that's all. It's not offensive to me. It's just distracting. Then I'll stop thinking about what I'm talking about, and I'll start thinking about you. It sucks having this brain. When I was 9 years old, I went to a mental place for mental studies. And one of the things they found out is that I had severe ADHD, all that stuff, so I really do get easily distracted. And I enjoy meetings that ask you to put your phones away so that I don't get distracted. It's not because I care what you do with your phone. I really don't care if you're listening or not. It's on you. I don't care. But it distracts me when I'm up here. So if you could, just for 40 minutes or so, hope you can hang in there. Because love is the answer. So I got asked to speak here on Monday by Kirk. It's his fault. And if you don't like anything I have to say after the meeting, take it up with him. It's his fault. In any case, I hope that what you hear here tonight will help you in your understanding of where you are. I see a lot of young faces this evening. I'm going to assume that some of you arrived in a van. I've counted 14. So if you arrived in a beautiful van, I hope that you avail yourself of where you were taken this evening, and I really do hope that you do feel welcome. I hope that you do listen to what's going on around here. I'm grateful that Al T spoke for the first 10 minutes or so. He's getting better, There's the hope. There's the hope. You don't have to be perfect at 12. I used to drink, that's the truth. I used to drink alcohol. I'm an alcoholic. And this is an open AA meeting, so all members of the community are welcome to attend, and that includes heroin addicts. You are all welcome to attend this meeting. That includes people that are addicted to different opioids, or that includes people who have a loved one who's suffering from the disease of alcohol, and they go to Al-Anon. If you're a gambler, if you're whatever you have, and if you're the mayor, if you're a cop, if you're a news reporter, you're all welcome here. It's an open AA meeting. That's the difference between an open and closed. A closed meeting is for alcoholics only. This is an open meeting, and everybody here is welcome. At 9, after 2 years, I was about 11 years old. They studied. They put me in these circle rooms with windows, mirrored windows, the one-ways, and the people with clipboards looking at me and judging me. And unfortunately, they were asking me to do whatever I wanted to. Can you imagine being told at 9 years old, do whatever you want to? Free range. So I received a lot of labels. I had a lot of labels. And that doesn't make me an alcoholic. But I started drinking right after that. I was about 11 years old. I know I started late. But I started at 11 years old. And, I grew up in a place called Venice, not Italy, and we don't call it beach. And the west side of Los Angeles, Santa Monica, West LA. And it was a bit different than it is today. Nobody had money. Half the properties were abandoned. And the type of neighbors that we had were bikers that were all on heroin. Back then, the only people that were on heroin were bikers that I knew of. No 20-year-old kid I ever met was on heroin. And you had hippies, you had ne'er-do-wells, you had beatniks. The remnants of the beatnik era was still around, dying off. Homeless people look just like the hippies, so it's hard to tell the difference. And that was my neighborhood. We were a mix of black, white, and Mexican. I'm Mexican. You can tell by my blue eyes and my freckles that I'm Mexican. So I felt different because I was supposed to look like Cuauhtemoc, but I look like brother, right, brother? You know, and that's what I look like, and I know that. So I wanted to drink. I wanted to connect. As a child, I threw rocks. I can give an entire AA talk on rock throwing, what it used to be like, what happened, what it's like now. And I mean, I swear to God, I can. In our neighborhood, when you were little, younger than the older kids, your job was to throw rocks at anybody that came to your neighborhood that wasn't from your neighborhood and force them out. And it wasn't a choice. You didn't really have a choice. You want to come out and play? Here's a rock. Break a window, crack somebody's head open, do whatever you got to do, but you got to pay your dues to get in that water. And it was a bit, the water was a bit feral. A lot of surfing going on, but not Malibu surfing, a little bit different. A lot of nails were glassed onto the noses of surfboards and intentionally rammed into people. People brought weapons out in the lineup, and there was fights, and there was guns and knives. There was a lot of violence. And it seemed the only normal life for me. I figured I'd die with a bullet in the back of my head and a John Doe tag on my foot, laying in a gutter somewhere. And I didn't want to end up that way. You know, that's where I saw my life going. That's kind of what alcohol and whatever was going on around me was happening. And I didn't want that to be the end of my life. I'm not suicidal. I've never been suicidal. I've been homicidal, but I've never been suicidal. I'd rather hurt you. I don't want to hurt myself. So at about 17, I bought a one-way ticket, and I joined the French Foreign Legion. And if you don't know what it is, Google it after the meeting. And I was Sergeant Airborne in the Foreign Legion. I was drunk. I was in charge of 9 guys, and we had 9 or 10 different nationalities in the 10-man crew. And I fit in. Everyone was different. My bazooka guy was from Portugal. My sharpshooter was an Arabic guy who wouldn't tell us what country he was from, no matter how many times we beat on him. You know, we had a Belgian corporal. He got beat up a lot because they don't like the Belge. We had every different nationality, and I fit in perfectly in that little island of broken toys. And I was paranoid, and I was developing a lot of paranoia. And I had a FAMAS rifle, a 5.56 NATO round FAMAS, and I was paranoid, and I was in charge. It's not a good combination. And I got deployed. I was deployed after the bombings of Beirut. I got deployed for the first time in Lebanon. There were famines going on in Ethiopia. I got to go visit those lovely people and watch them die twice. And I drank through all that. And then I came home. And I came home a bit crazy. And I came home because my sister was going to get married to some very nice man named John. A very nice man named John. John had done nothing wrong. John had loved my sister, her only boyfriend. And I came home to kill John because he was going to marry my sister. No one ever told me, come home and kill your future brother-in-law. I had a warped sense of reality that I was acting on. I did not know that I could think what I want to. I did not know that I could feel anything. I thought whatever came out of my mind or my feelings or my emotions, I had to act on it, and that's what I would do. So I came into his, he was a Sizzler manager, and I walked in full uniform, and I was chip on my shoulder looking to do something, and he said, you must be Oscar. And I said, yep. And I tried to fight with him. I tried all kinds of stuff. The whole family turned against me. At one point, I wasn't allowed to go to the wedding. I was uninvited. I was a poor example of a brother. I was a poor example of a son. I was an animal. I was just I had no idea about reality. I'd been living in a different reality in my mind. And on top of all that, I couldn't see straight. I don't have contacts or glasses now. I had something called LASIK, but everything was blurry, and I never went to anybody to talk about it. I kept it to myself. So I couldn't see things real good. So everything was a blur. Reality was not really that clear. And I hurt somebody pretty bad. I did not intend to hurt somebody pretty bad. I intended to just drink. But it passed, you know, and I mean, I'd been drinking for a while. I'd been drinking. I knew I was an alcoholic. I had overdosed on accident, not on purpose. They put tubes in my nose, and I came to the next morning, and I'd missed everything, but I was alive, and I thought, this is great. I wish they had that every night. I had no concern for myself. I was still very young and very invincible, you know. And at some point, some people in Narcotics Anonymous, so the bikers in my neighborhood, one of their kids came home from juvie, and we were doing something in the living room while they went off to an Al-Anon meeting, I guess. The mom was sick of what was going on. And she come home to all of us. She called up these NA people, and all these motorcycles pulled up and dragged us around to NA meetings. These were the founders of Narcotics Anonymous in Los Angeles. A guy named Joe Gomez and Danny Trejo and Frank Villa were the people that were my Eskimos into this program. And I didn't really think of myself as a drug addict, as some people here might not feel themselves an alcoholic. So I understand that. And, you know, because I never shot heroin. I never used heroin. I never did it. It wasn't something that we did. Morphine was never in my system, and I never thought about shooting up with a vein in my vein. Just wasn't my thing. I watched all those people as a little boy, and they were wasted, and they were done. They were at the end of their rope. So it didn't seem like a good idea to me. But drinking seemed perfectly normal. It's legal. You can't tell me I can't do it. But I drank. You know, my typical drink was I'd grab 2 bottles, and I'd down the first one as fast as I could, and I'd milk the next one because then I could maintain. I could just relax with you. I was the king of Bogart. I could hang out in a group of people, and I could stand next to who I knew had the most of whatever they had, and I could be right next to the person when they were about to pass. And I could pretend that I was passing the cheapest thing I could find at the store. If I had to steal it, I would, but I would pass that around to look like I was a part of the pass ticket. And I would take the good stuff, and I would just clear it up before you guys got to see me do anything. And I thought I was fooling you, and I may have been fooling most of the people I hung out with because it was dark, and it was outside, and everybody was wasted anyway. After hurting somebody really bad, I had to call the police on myself. And I wanted to take 5 minutes of my life back. You know, I didn't want that to happen. That was not my intention. But I couldn't. And the cops came, and the ambulance came, and the fire department, and all those people, the 911 arrival shows up. And they gave me that look of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And I know that look. And if you don't know that look, maybe you're not done. But I know that look from that person that is supposed to be in charge. And they looked at me like, what a scumbag. And I felt the same way they looked at me, you know. I felt like a scumbag. And somebody did me a favor, a law enforcement officer who didn't know me very well. He just said, hey, I remember you. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. What have you done with your life? And I wanted to, you know, tell him about my medals and my hoorah and all this. And all I could tell him was, you know what, I've been on a merry-go-round and I can't get off. And he asked me to lay low. He said, their family is a big family and they're going to come hunting for you. Lay low. And don't leave the county of Los Angeles. So I laid low. I hid in a crack house in Pacoima. That was my idea of laying low. Because I don't do crack, so crack house is good. And I'm hiding in the crack house in Pacoima, and I've got this hostage with me. A hostage is what I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, is what you think a girlfriend is at the later stages of your drinking and whatever. It's really what I thought was a girlfriend. It was just somebody I captured and brought with me. with low self-esteem like myself. And she was the perfect girlfriend. I'd offer her something and she wouldn't take it. She did not accept. What a great person to have in a relationship. I don't have to, provide her anything. I could just be me. So one day somebody offered her something at this crack house, and there was a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in this sparsely furnished house. And she picked it up like we were vampires and hid behind it, and said, no, like, oh my God, you're embarrassing us. We're guests here, Slide it over. I'll take whatever you don't want. I'm a pig, come on. I'm good for that. And she said that she was 90 days clean and sober. Man, I felt like I was going to hell. The things I'd done was one thing, but bringing a person with 90 days to a crack house, that was not a good thing. So I knew I was going to hell, but I remembered those people that came on their motorcycles that tried to 12-step me. The only meeting that I could remember was a meeting in Burbank called the Angelino Club. And so I took her in my 1967 Datsun 4-door orange vehicle, alcoholic car. It had 8 shades of orange, and I am not lying. I got a picture somewhere. The back end of the trunk was smashed in, and there was a padlock holding it from popping open. And on the back window it said, "Don't laugh, your daughter may be in this car." That is what I came to Alcoholics Anonymous looking like. That's how I got here. And I didn't go to rehab. I'm sorry. It's not my experience, I didn't. I sat in the parking lot of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, drinking Seagram 7 and Old English 800. That was my drink of choice, 7 and 8. I thought 7 and 7 was kind of like near beer. Why are you wasting your time with 7-Up? It's alcohol, and alcohol gets you alcohol. And during the coffee break, much like tonight, there was a coffee break, and the people spilled out of the meeting during the coffee break, and Joe Gomez was standing outside the meeting, and he had a patch on his eye. He had 19 years, and I remember that. That was 1987. And I got out of my stinky car that had no brakes anymore because I was driving on the e-brake. I was just, wasted all the time. No insurance. I got out of my car, and my bright idea was, I'm going to go to China now, and I'm going to become a rice farmer. Because I'm a runner. I'm a geographic major. I go places. I ended up on an island on the other side of the world, next to the Indian Ocean, and there I was. Everywhere I went, there I was. I couldn't get away from me. And that was my bright idea, but I couldn't get a job anymore. I was unemployable. I couldn't lie my way into getting some money. I couldn't steal anymore. I was no good at anything. I had hit bottom. I was hopeless. I was helpless. I had no friendly direction. And I came up to that guy and I said, I didn't mean to say this, okay? I meant to say, hey, I'm trying to figure out a way to get money to go to China to become a rice farmer. But what I said was, I need help. And he said, come on in, boy, or kid, or pal, or some derogatory term. And pal, right? Yeah, come on in, buddy. And I walked into the meeting and I sat down and I thought, why are you guys laughing? The place was laughing. It was the main speaker. Some dude from the Sex Pistols was speaking. And I didn't think it was anything he was saying was funny. I was like, I'm morbidly done. I'm done. Nothing's funny. Everyone's laughing with identification, but I did not understand that yet. So I went to that meeting once a week, whether I needed to or not. I mean, I didn't know any other meetings, and I certainly wasn't going to go up to the literature table. Do you guys have literature in this meeting? Well, at some meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, they have literature. And they're free to the newcomer, especially the softbound literature. The hardbound literature is sold at cost. And this place had literature, and I did not want to approach the literature table because if you saw me go to the literature table, you would know I didn't know. And I didn't want to not know in front of you. So I just listened to whoever was at the podium speaking or sharing. I followed that direction for as best I could, and I white-knuckled it, Sometimes I would drink near beer on the week, and I'd go, this is like alcohol. I might as well just start my sobriety date over. Sometimes I'd drink some real beer. Sometimes I'd do something else. But after a couple months of keep coming back, I was going back once a week on that day. At some point, I realized in the summer of 1987, I had 15 days of sobriety, 15 days. And I had a little black book that I kept with me that I had notes. It was all in code, circles and squares and triangles, all in code, because if law enforcement found it, or parents found it, or your mom's parents found it, or somebody's authority found it, you couldn't bust me, because I was very sneaky. And plus, I was pretty close to a space cadet at that point, you know. I didn't make very much sense. I had 15 days. I was sitting at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was somewhere around August of 1987, and I was sitting there. I was about 22 years old. All these old people, 38 years old or older, were all there trying to, you know, they were all sober. But I'm 22. I'm not done. I'm 22. You can't tell me, you know. I had 15 days, and I knew if I got 15, I could get another 15. I could do that on my head. And I got 15 days, and that 30-day chip meant more to me than any medal I had ever earned in my life. And that is the honest truth. I got a 30-day chip, and I sat down, and I was so proud. And, you know, this is how I did it. My name's Oscar. I'm an alcoholic. Yakety-yak, whatever the guy just said behind me. Thank you. That's how I did my 30-day chip. They made you go to the podium. I did not have very good self-esteem, so I didn't know how to look you in the eye or any of that kind of stuff. And when I sat down, the lady next to me, a well-meaning lady, much like you, looked over at me, much like you look at Jake over there, and said, "You're not sober." And that hurt my feelings. Because I looked and I thought, you know what, maybe I'm not sober. And I counted my days, and I had 30 days. So then I got a resentment against that lady. That's what I did. I got a resentment. Not you personally. But I got a resentment against that lady, and I'll show her, because I didn't know people stayed sober. I thought you guys said keep coming back because you took turns going out, and you all want to be nice to each other on your way back in. And I've met a few of you that have kept coming back in and out, so you are still welcome. But I didn't know that people actually stayed. I really did not understand this reality. I mean, I had no concept of what was happening. I wasn't thrown into a treatment center going through phase 1 through 4 and, you know, none of that. I just came out of my car and I sat in a meeting, and that's the only thing I heard. So I got a sponsor on a resentment. I wanted to outlast that lady. I knew she would eventually go out, because everyone always does. Because I'd see people coming back. I'm back. I just had a relapse. You know, and I figured that's what everyone did. I didn't know. I had 30 days. I was like, I got 30 days. That's a big deal. But how do I get longer than her? So my hope was, I'm going to outlast her. I'm going to hope that she goes out. I'm going to watch her. I'm going to make sure she goes out. And when she goes out, I hope she dies. And when she dies, I'm going to piss on her grave. And that's why I got a sponsor. I didn't get a sponsor to get out of level 1. I got a sponsor for a resentment. You know, and I didn't like my sponsor. I picked the wrong guy. It's a bad idea. Some guy had handed a card to my hostage's mom. She was a checker at a supermarket. And she brought it home and says, "Look, honey, these nice young men said you could go to their meeting. I told them you were sober. I saw their chips. I reminded them I'd be." And I was thinking, they're trying to hit on you. They're trying to take away the only thing I have. I'm going to go shank a fool. So I went to this meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous to go shank somebody. That's the truth. I didn't come to AA with, you know, we don't care why you come. We care why you stay. And the truth is, I came with all the bad reasons. And I went to that meeting expecting to find this person and, you know, get him on the side of the neck when they weren't looking. But you guys tricked me. I wandered through the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody shook my hand. They made me feel welcome. I sat down. I got a seat. I got so swept up in the fourth dimension of AA, and that night, everybody was really inclusive and made me feel a part of, and they didn't know me from Adam. And I thought, because I have a warped sense of reality still, I sat way in the back with her against the wall so you couldn't touch her. And don't shake my hand. You're a dude. You know, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get up on my girl. Get out of here. And I got swept up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I made a decision sitting at that meeting. That's the most active AA meeting I'd ever been to in my life. I'm going to wait for the last person to leave that meeting. And that's the guy I'm going to ask to be my sponsor, because he's got to be the most active person in AA, at the most active meeting in AA, and I'm the sickest member that ever came in that door. I need the most help. Steve Sterling was in charge of cleanup. That's why he was the last to leave, and I asked him to sponsor me. I hated him. He was 2 years sober. I thought that was forever. I hated him. He looked like he was brought up behind a white picket fence. He'd never run the streets. I hated him. He looked like he never had a real cheap fight. I hated him. He looked like he fought fair, if he ever fought at all without disagreeing with you. I hated him. And to top it off, and it still bothers me, he looked like John Elway. I'm a Raider fan. I cannot look at John Elway for direction. I'm going to die. It was nauseating. So I had hit bottom like no one else had. You know, I had to admit complete defeat in order to do that. And I was willing to go to any lengths. I made a decision to myself. Nobody asked me to do that. I went into the restroom after I talked to him, and I made a decision, you know what, I'm going to do whatever he asked me to do, unless it's illegal or immoral. And I don't know morals very well, but I know what's illegal, and I'm trying not to do that anyway because I got the hot seat. He had me read the big book from cover to cover. He started me on the steps, had me go through the 12 and 12, got me to go to meetings early. Well, it seemed like he got me to do things. The truth was he would suggest things very nicely, but I heard him say, you must go to all these meetings an hour early, and it seemed like he was mean to me and he was pushy. Get to these meetings early, stay late, get commitments at all these meetings. He would ask me stupid questions like, at a party, were you the first to get there or the last to leave? And I was always the last to leave. He goes, then you're on cleanup. It's like, oh man, he's just a trickster. Basket went by one day, and he noticed that I ain't touching that. You know, I was unemployable. I didn't have a job. I mean, I was smoking cigarettes maybe at the time and drinking my own drinks, my own gas. But I ain't got money for your seventh tradition. This is you guys' problem, not mine. He saw the basket go by. Of course, he made a big point about it. He did it really in front of everybody. He said, listen, pal, another insult. We've got enough takers in Alcoholics Anonymous. Why don't you start giving back to something that's so freely given to you and put something in the basket? And he didn't make it clear what. And I asked, like what? And he goes, well, put a penny in the basket. A penny. There isn't a person in this room that can't find a penny on the floor or in a van or in a room. You can find a penny, and if everybody put a penny in the basket, I'll tell you something fun. You will upset the treasurer. You want to have fun in AA, start with a penny, just to piss off the treasurer, because they got to count that stuff. They hate that. They hate me for telling you that. But that's the truth. This isn't about I'm super good, now I'm going to do good. This is I suck inside. I'm going to do something contrary to what I have inside, and maybe I'll feel a little bit better about myself. So it was a contrary action as a taker to start putting a penny in the basket. There was no reason I couldn't do that. And he said the reason I did that is to develop a different habit. I developed the habit of giving. I got commitments because I had to become a giver, because I am a taker. I heard a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous in my first year. I heard that 10% of the people in AA are doing 90% of the work. And if you look at this meeting, let's say we got 100 people. There's 10 people with commitments in this meeting. Not saying the rest of you are takers, but 90% of the meetings are sucking the life out of AA. Love is the answer, and that's the truth. We can all give to this meeting and any meeting we attend to just by showing up early, just by shaking hands. That doesn't require you give money or have a special commitment like this young man does wearing a hat indoors. It doesn't require any of that. You know, what it requires is, it's okay. What it requires is you give something back. You shake a hand. You put out some chairs. You put them away. You put out some coffee cups. Those are things I learned. Here's another thing I did. I learned in AA. I gave my attention. I have attention. I have attention deficit disorder from UCLA. I am a graduate of mental studies, and I can focus and simulate interest. It's a concerted effort, but I can do it. And if I can do it, people who have not been diagnosed with this issue can do it a little easier. But it's difficult because I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, I'm egotistical. I'm busy thinking about me when somebody's sharing at the podium. It's hard to get out of my head. And so when I simulate interest, I'm trying the best I can to listen for some similarities so that I can stay sober tomorrow. And the whole point of it, they got this little 12-step at the very bottom of it. One alcoholic tried to help another alcoholic back in the 1930s. The guy had 2 months of sobriety, 2 months. He didn't have 2 years and have gone through the steps and the traditions and have a service commitment and a home group. He had 2 months. He had nothing, 2 months. And he went to a guy named Bill, and he carried the message of hope to Bill. It's in Bill's story. You can read it. It's where they hide the solutions. The big book. It's right there. It's like 13 pages, right? 13 easy-to-read pages. Somewhere about 8 to 13, it's like really good right there. One newcomer tried to help another newcomer. You know why? Because it says on the bottom of that, at the very last part of it, to practice these principles in affairs, says, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics. That's what I'm trying to do right now, for fun and for free. I'm not charging the safe harbor or any treatment facility. I've done this for free. Not judging, Al. Not judging. But, you know, that's what I learned to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned to do it for free. I carry the message of hope for free. And I try to be a good example. I may be adamant at times. I may be, some would say, serious at times. But this is you bet your life, and I don't want to play with my life. And there's a lot of members of Alcoholics Anonymous in this meeting. There's a lot of newcomers in Alcoholics Anonymous in this meeting. And there's a lot of pre-comers in Alcoholics in this meeting. Pre-comers are people who are not yet sober, but they're just visiting. They're going to get sober later. You are welcome here too. I was a pre-comer before I got to AA. Those guys tried to help me. I didn't have sobriety yet. They were telling me about AA. That's what I was. It's a loving comment, isn't it? I got out of my first 30 years of sobriety in August, so now I'm into my next, I hope. But that doesn't mean that I'm any farther away from a drink than anybody else in this room. The highest in AA that I have ever become is a trusted and experienced servant of the whole, which means that I've studied these steps and tried to work them to help you, studied these traditions and worked them to help the unity of Alcoholics Anonymous so that we can have our primary purpose and stay here. And now the 12 concepts, which none of you guys have any idea about, but the 12 concepts, so I could be of service to the general AA areas. I was told that there are two types of people. I'm either a giver or a taker, and I've been a taker, so I take a contrary action to become a giver. Everything I've learned to do. And I've gone through a lot of stuff sober. I re-enlisted in the U.S. military. I did 12 years as Sergeant Airborne. I deployed again, this time sober. I turned 9 years sober in Bosnia. I got out April of 04 ETS. I try to help veterans. Veterans try to help me. I have issues about that kind of stuff, and I have sought outside help. But I have paid attention so that I can be there for the next person who seeks outside help in that situation. And I'm trying to carry the message. It's the only way I've learned to do it here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got somebody pregnant at a year of sobriety. I didn't 13-step, I waited a year. And then I know a lot of people getting people pregnant around this town, but I didn't until I had a year. And then I became a single father. At the end of the day, I became a single father and raised a daughter who's currently maybe 4 days sober. Maybe. She's 27. Maybe. And you know how difficult it is knowing all the stuff I know to stay out of her business? It's difficult. I can help total strangers in here, but I cannot help my own family. And I know that here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the hope is that somebody heard something that they can relate to. Somebody then becomes willing to go to any lengths to get and stay sober, and then carry this message of hope to the next suffering alcoholic, because I won't be able to reach everyone, but you might be able to reach someone I can't reach. And the whole thing is about trying to help the next person. That's how we stay. It has nothing to do with your job or whether you graduated from a treatment facility or whether you own it. It has to do with, am I helping the next suffering alcoholic achieve sobriety? Can I go to bed at night and put my head on my pillow with a calm head and a quiet stomach? Can I be honest? Can I be open-minded? Can I be willing? Just right now. I'm a liar. I'm a cheater. I'm a thief. I try to take contrary actions. I wear this stupid suit because the founder of this meeting started this meeting based on my old home group. He moved out here in 1987, the Rarely Group. This used to be the cream of the crop meeting about Alcoholics Anonymous. Everyone dressed up at this meeting. I'm the only one doing that tonight. But that guy helped my sponsor and my sponsor helped me. And I'm here to carry that message on to you. And if you hear the message of hope and you take it to the next suffering alcoholic and carry the message of hope, you don't have to have a lot of time. You just have to have heard the message. It had to resonate. This isn't about frothy emotional appeal. This is about depth and weight. If you are not an alcoholic and none of this is making sense, good for you. Lucky you. I am. And if you are an alcoholic, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I hope that you carry this message to the next suffering alcoholic. Thanks.